Great.
So maybe I'll stop there.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
2 questions. The gray slivers on the if you go to the other slides,
The line charts?
is that just summer slide? What is that?
Yes, ma'am. That's yes,
Okay.
summer slide.
And then the other I wanted to know is when we were in the yellow, you had something that said achievement gap, but I didn't understand what what is this slide?
This is meant to be my slide that explains to everyone how to read the slides, which clearly didn't work because you couldn't even understand
I
the slide.
saw achievement gap, and I started like, what are you saying about the achievement gap? So I was waiting. I was like,
It's
where are you
the
going
gap
with this?
between the urban sample and the HISD sample. That's what we mean by achievement gap. So
Got it.
in here, for example, the gap at the end of 6th grade in spring of 24 was 4 percentile rank points. It's 4 points. You can look at the gap then the following spring, 45 versus 54, that's grown to 9 points. And then by the end of 8th grade, it's grown to 18 points. Every spring when those get farther apart is a result of the HISD slope being steeper. If they were parallel, the gap would stay the same.
Got
So
it.
we like to look at that end of year gap, which,
Got it.
yeah, achievement gap's probably not the best term.
I would
As
just
an
say
indicator.
when we hear achievement gap, we're thinking about, we use that differently. So that's why I was like, where are we going?
100% understood.
And then the only other thing, just because you're here, so you guys spent a lot of time with this. Other than this, like, did you have any discussions or musings on your team about what was going on? I just want to know that these are unusual numbers. Any behind the scenes, what did your team think? What does it reveal to you, if anything?
I mean, what we thought was, what did we do wrong? I mean, honestly, we started doing this maybe 2 weeks ago, and there's been a lot of, middle of the night wake-ups, kind of thinking like, oh, how could we have done this wrong? Is there some kind of like inclusion criteria, or did we model the timing different or something like that? We ran it a couple of different ways. We also did some comparisons that created a custom comparison for every single HISD kid. So this was comparing HISD to urban schools. We did a separate analysis that compared every HISD kid to tens of thousands of kids, like every one of them had their own comparison group. And there's this little thing called a quadrant chart, which is growth by achievement. And HISD is all above average in the growth. They're all in the top 2 quadrants. So we could still be wrong. We could still have screwed something up, but we haven't figured it out yet. I mean, that's what we've been thinking about, is what could it be? But
And so I'm going to do the dot, because you're saying the achievement is so remarkable. You thought you made a mistake? I just want to make sure, is that what you're saying?
there's an old saying, I forget, I think it's Carl Sagan, that said extraordinary claims need to be backed by extraordinary evidence, which is why we spent additional time. We knew this was going to be in front of you all. This was going to be a public venue in front of educators and families who wanted to be very confident in our results. We spent a whole lot of time on it, and I think
And you're confident of your results.
I am. Yep.
The other thing that gives me confidence is that our STAR data is very similar. It's remarkable. It hasn't been done before. NAEP the same way. So, and it's year after year. It's not, this is the 8th test.
Okay, I think we really appreciate you coming and giving us this data. I just want to give a big shout out first to the students for their achievement, because they're the ones putting pencil to paper or computer button, what have you, and then to our teachers and to our team here, because you know what, I'm going to take this as extraordinary and really good news.
Is this ready to go? It was great to have Scott, since, we present this data all the time, and, it's more about the numbers, but he did a great job of trying to keep it in layman's terms. He's a statistician and making it pretty technical, so I really appreciate the presentation. I'm going to just do just a couple more, because I do want to talk about the achievement gap a little bit. And so just a few more slides on this. This is the median achievement percentile, grades 3 through 8 combined. You can see the growth in the median achievement percentile from the beginning of the year 2023 to now the middle of the year 25-26, and now this graph represents all, so math 51 to 64, huge growth. ELA or RLA, reading language arts, and then science. And this is broken down by subgroup. So about 6% of our students are Asian, 10% are white, 62% Hispanic, 23% black, and then there's others. And you can see that our Asian and white students start at a pretty high percentile compared to all the other kids taking this NWA test, this is math, and they grew also. But our black and Hispanic students grew even more. Now, they started further behind, but I said 2.5 years ago, the way to close the achievement gap, or to narrow it significantly, is not to depress our higher performing students, but to grow our lower performing students faster. And this is exactly what's been happening. So our instructional quality and effectiveness has grown even for the kids who are doing well already. It has not diminished the instructional abilities of our stronger performers. But our black and Hispanic kids are just moving faster, so they're narrowing that gap. So we got a ways to go, there's no question about that, but you can see that kind of growth is incredible. This is our English language arts, same thing, 81 to 84 for Asians, 80 to 81. So not as much growth for our white students, but still they start at a pretty high point. And this is more of this is your proficiency level, right? This is achievement. But you can see our black students growing 10 points and Hispanics growing 12 points. So much higher, we're narrowing the gap. This is just 2.5 years in. Another 2.5 years, you can see that line just moving well above the national norm. And then finally, science is even more incredible. For our 3rd through 8th graders, you can see the growth, 20 points. That's incredible. So our subgroup data is looking really strong. I'm not going to go through any more. We have more data for you, but you have it in your charts, number one, or your handouts. And then remember, next month, we're going to go into more details because of the progress monitoring metrics. So I'll save the rest for that.
Can I do one?
Yes, ma'am.
So didn't you guys do something special with science this year? And is that a part of what we're seeing? And my years, I don't remember if this fall, but I remember there was a revamp with the curriculum. What was that?
Yes, so last year we started with providing stronger correlated or aligned rather science curriculum. And that has turned out to be very good for our students. We also do 90-minute classes in science. We also started last year, so this is now the 2nd year of that. And you can see it's cumulative, right? I mean, it's every year the kids start off higher, so they go even further. And so I think that's the main reason for science. Kristen, anything to add to that? Okay.
I just wanted to make sure, because I knew you guys were doing something, but so we're seeing the benefits in these structural changes that have been provided.
And just one last thing before we leave NWA, because let me give you some anecdotes also about our kids. So when the NWA test is given, every kid has their own growth metric, right? Because they start at different places. So not the achievement bar, I'm talking about the growth now. They'll have a target, a growth target. And almost every school gives the student a number and say, this is your growth target. This is how many points you have to get. Because of the NWA test, at the end of it, the student gets immediate feedback. They'll get their score. So if their target was 205 RIT points, they'll see they got a 210 or 203 or whatever they got, and they'll be able to tell. And so there were so many cheers and just, look at what I got, look at what I got. And they were so proud of their success. They were proud of their success, and that happened over and over again in almost every school. Even the kids who didn't meet their target, because obviously some of them didn't, the teachers were saying, you know, you did great anyways, you're gonna get it the next time, you're close, or, you know, words of encouragement. There was no like, well, you didn't do it. And I think that's important, because that tells you the culture of achievement. Despite what anybody says, kids want to learn, kids want to be able to read at grade level and do math at grade level, and they're not deceived when they're getting in high scores, or their grades may be high, but their scores are low. All right, let's go beyond this. This is all good data, but you'll see it next time. I want to move on because I know it's already been a long evening. So I got to give you some context. We talked about the future focus HISD at the last board meeting and in some of the small group meetings. And you can see we are setting up the district for the next several years. In the next few months, we're setting up the district for the next several years, maybe in the next decade, with the things that you see here. For example, accelerated math for all, we're making it much more rigorous. We want every kid to take Algebra 1 by the time they leave middle school. Not all of them will, but we're designing it so that the vast majority will. We're raising the bar, so we keep going. That's the future. And you know, that's going to be rigorous for our kids. Future 2 we've talked about. Today I just want to briefly touch on level 5 autonomy. We have schools here. This is the update for that. We introduced this, and I've talked about it a little bit with the board, to provide additional flexibility for our highest performing schools. We have defined autonomy, and we're going to actually make it even stronger to where the highest performing schools could have full autonomy. And that's what this is. It's the 1882 partnership, which gives them full autonomy. What does that mean? Because they have a fair amount of autonomy now, but they will have their own evaluation system if they want. They'll do spot observations. Because right now, schools have very little autonomy with regard to evaluation and instruction. Because the autonomy has to be earned. And so now that we've seen that schools have earned it, there's going to be level 5 autonomy. And I appreciate professional behavior here and not interrupt me.
That was me. Your Honor. Be professional.
Anyway, so that's what we're doing for the level 5 autonomy. The other reason for doing it is it does give us access to more funding. So as you know, there's one speaker, the lady was talking about more funding for programs for Energy Institute, Energy Institute. That's the other thing this will do. So greater autonomy for the schools that earn it. We're also bringing level 4, but that's a different story for next year, but that's more autonomy also. And these are the 4 level 5 autonomy schools that have volunteered, by the way, to become an 1882 partner. And so we've been working with them, these 4 schools, and they're 501c3 to develop an 1882 partnership. So you can see we started even earlier than October, started introducing it to principals, asked for volunteers, asked for principals to set up a 501c3 or a group to set up a 501c3. In January, so last month, the 4 campuses submitted applications. We scored their applications, and then these applications will be submitted to TEA. If the board approves tonight, the board is voting to authorize me to explore, or my team, to explore and negotiate a contract and apply for 1882 partnership benefits. So we'll have a draft contract, we have one, and we'll work on that contract until the board votes in March 19th, and it's a board decision whether or not they approve a performance contract with this 1882 partner, these 4 schools. And then we have to submit that to TEA. They also have to approve the 1882 part of this contract. So we actually have a little bit more time after the board votes, but then TEA also has to approve it. And that's my update on level 5. Yes.
Thank you. You mentioned autonomy, but what about addressing accountability to continued growth of student outcomes? Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, ma'am. So in the performance contract, it's called a performance contract for a couple of reasons. One, because it outlines all the requirements, but also all the autonomies in the performance contract. But most specifically, it has to have metrics in there for continued operations. So for us, in the performance part of this performance contract, or the metric part of the performance contract, the schools have to maintain their A rating. They also have to have they have to meet budget on finances and a few other things like that. So we're not trying to make it too hard, but we do want to maintain our accountability. So these schools all have 4 years in a row of an A rating. I think we can trust them to continue to have an A rating.
Mike, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
The schools remain HISD schools.
That's right. So in 1882 partnership, the schools only have the authority of a contract, right? And the contract can be limited from 3 years to 10 years. Ours are going to be 5 years for these level 5, and they have to maintain the performance in those 5 years. The building is always remains under the auspices of the board of managers or an elected board. So it is our school building, and the students' scores are HISD scores. So there are students as well, but the operations is the part that is autonomous. The operations of the school is controlled through contract by the board, and it's from one board to the other.
And you will continue, HISD will continue to provide separate services to the extent that schools need that sort of support.
So yes is a broad answer, but some of the services they can choose to do on their own, and that's all part of the performance contract. So I'll give you a good example. Let's say they think they can provide the grounds keeping on their own. So we would give them the money that we spend right now on grounds for them, and then they either do it better or they do it worse, but you know, in contract it can't be so bad to be a hazard. But anyways, that's so, but all the other things like HR, finance, we're going to be supporting.
So the contract is basically a performance contract that is entered into a 501c3 that is going to operate the school, and that HISD will have measures of performance, that if the performance measures are not met, the contract can be canceled and the school can be brought back into the situation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then, in addition, we'll have audit rights, we'll have financial analysis and statements and representations from those groups so that no money will be misused or stolen, correct?
That's correct, and not only that, it's part of the performance contract that they have to meet budget, they have to have an audit, so there are clear metrics around that.
Okay, and we're going to get those contracts, you're going to negotiate those contracts. And I understand that TA starts with a form contract that a lot of other 1882s have used, but and you're going to have all those things in the contract given in advance to the board to be able to review it, and then ultimately the board has to approve everything that's in that contract, correct?
That's right, sir. And one last thing, because we have several representatives from these high schools here tonight, and what we want to do is provide more autonomy and allow them to have more innovation. This is not an attempt for us to get more money or anything like that. So you're going to see in the performance contract that every one of them will have more money next year than they did this year, and fairly significantly more. And that's because we're not trying to write a contract where we're making money off of them. We want them to be successful. And in the end of the day, any district that has a real strong, what's called a performance management theory of action, where we control a lot of the instruction, that is not actually the best way to run a district long term. Over time, you have to allow for individuals to have some different innovations. Now, that has to be earned. You can't have 274 autonomous schools like we inherited, because then you get 121 DNF campuses. But over time, they are earning it, they will earn it, and we'll be able to allow them to have innovation. That lady who spoke today from Energy Institute, she was right on the mark. They want to innovate. They want different robotics and engineering and programming, and we should allow them to do that.
So this is a in-district charter school in essence, right? That's what it's called. It's
Yeah.
part of that 1882. Okay, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
And let me
in some
finish.
ways, yes.
So
Go
it
ahead.
is that, correct? And as a matter of fact, the elected boards of previous elected boards of HISD have created multiple in-district charter schools that we currently have today, correct?
We have 5 today. We had 6. Yes.
And then the interesting part of that is that had they used an 1882 partnership, the district would have earned $30 million more by just having that as an 1882 partnership.
Yes.
which
So
is really
and the ones that the in-district charters that we have wish they could be 1882. By the way,
Right.
because it's the same thing, except now they would get more money.
Okay, so there's nothing special about 1882 versus in-district charters that the elected boards have already put in place in HISD over the years.
That's right, and a number of districts have them. Go ahead, Andy.
So you spoke briefly about presenting it to the principals, and they had the choice to opt in. But I also know that there was a larger discussion. It wasn't just the principals and the staff. It was a community discussion, but we haven't talked about that here. So can you tell us a little bit about whether this is a principal-led issue, or if this is the school community? So how did the school get to decide whether they wanted to take this on or not?
Yeah, so we asked, and by the way, we limited it to high schools. And then we said, these are the only ones that could apply, because only these 4, or these, I think there was 12, had 4 years in a row. And we have another 4. So all of them went to their staff and their SDMCs, and I think they did parent surveys. Everybody was able to do how they wanted to do their parent engagement. They had to do SDMCs if nothing else. So 4 came back and said they want to pursue it. Doesn't mean they want to sign yet. They want to know more about it. And the other 4 others said, we're going to wait till next year, the following year. Probably wanting to wait how it turns out. So it was there's no question, I put it out there as an initiative because, again, we want to expand innovation. But these are totally community-led things, and the reason why you see like the Friends of HSPVA is because they are already engaged, and they've been a long-standing organization, a parent organization. And yes, they donate money to the school, and they organize lots of engagement activities. So they're already involved, and the principal, you know, got the okay by the Friends of HSPVA. So it is a close partnership, of course. That's the type of partner you want to work with, somebody who knows the school and works with the school and has a good relationship with the principal, et cetera. And I think that's what we have in these four.
Anybody else? Okay, great. Go ahead, thank you.
All right, moving on. So I want to talk about our facilities and then recommend to the board some consolidations. And we'll have a longer discussion on the 26th, this board and I. But tonight I need to give you the big overview, and I'll be happy to answer some detailed questions, but just know that we have more opportunities. So there's no question that we have declining enrollment, and there's lots of reasons for that I'll get to in a minute. Not only is there declining enrollment, which impacts our bottom line, of course, but we also have our state funding is barely keeping up with inflation and just rising costs. And then, of course, you know, we have aging, underutilized school buildings. So low capacity in many of our schools, or low utilization, high capacity, low utilization, and many buildings that need repair. I mean, again, we just got through the winter, or hopefully we're through it, but you know, we almost ran out of duct tape, so I'm happy that you know, the winter ended quickly, because it's just a day-to-day fight for some of our buildings. At the same time, those are our challenges. We've been able to do in the last 3 years a lot because we right-sized central office. This year you're going to see more than a balanced budget. In other words, our revenue is higher than our expenditures this year. You're going to see that by the end of the year. And then we've made major progress in improving student outcomes. So we're not losing students because of D and F campuses anymore. I mean, we have been. It takes a while to turn that around. You know, if a school is an F campus for many years, you got kids leaving for years. We've turned that around, so that's where we are now. But we need to take action to sustain not only the gains, but also to put our district in the best position possible going forward, especially financially. Enrollment, you know, there's a lot of misinformation, and if we're going to close schools or consolidate schools, then we actually need to understand it a little bit. And there's been so much misinformation, I have to praise the Chronicle a little bit because they finally wrote an article on enrollment that had some facts about like immigration policy. They didn't do other things that they need to look at, but at least they got that right. Enrollment across the country has been declining. This is the number of school closures in the last couple years, including this year. You can see the Texas one, San Antonio, Austin. This is not the only ones. These are just the ones that you read about lately. Austin, Aldine. Aldine is entertaining yet another one. Spring ISD, Fort Bend just announced. And many other districts are closing schools and have closed schools in the last several years. This is HISD's enrollment over time, and yes, it has dropped. You can see that. But take a look at when the drop started. In the last 3 years before the intervention, the district lost 20,125. So, and then from even before we got here, the 3 years since we're 2.5 years in, another 21,000. So the district has been losing kids for quite some time. Even before COVID, the district lost kids. And then yes, COVID was a huge loss, but those kids didn't come back. And there has to be other reasons for it. So
Would you please keep your comments to yourself?
Exactly.
Okay, then that's your first warning.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a second one if you want.
Yeah, why don't you just get up and leave then? Go ahead, you're done. Would you please escort her out? She wanted to leave, she said so.
Oh, no, I didn't say I wanted.
Well, then you better be
That's why I
quiet.
did that.
Are you done speaking? I'm going to give you your second. I'm going to give you I'm giving you your second warning now.
That's not gonna get us right.
So we deserve to ask our questions.
You cannot ask questions in this medium, and if you want to keep talking, you must leave.
This is garbage. Garbage.
Then leave.
Get her out.
Garbage back.
Then stop talking.
Get her out.
Go ahead, Mr. Miles.
Would you please remove this woman, please? Thank you.
Oh, what makes her think that she should be yeah.
Now, the rules are,
Sorry, I hurt your feelings.
you didn't hurt my feelings.
Pointing out the truth.
Just being
But I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
rude.
Again, our rules are, you're not going to make comments during presentations like this. You'll have your 1 minute to speak and then you're done. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have to understand enrollment that way. And if you look at individual schools, especially in certain parts of the town, of the city, enrollment has declined even faster than after the intervention, but it has still been declining. Take a look at Hobby, for example. Much faster before the intervention. Same with Burris. About a little bit more in McReynolds, but McReynolds has lost a lot of kids in the last 6 years. And then the schools that are low enrollment continue to stay at low. Like Briscoe is an example of a school that's around 200 kids, and it has just stayed that way for many years. So that's the enrollment picture, and not to understand this will confuse why we're closing this school or that school, and that's the only reason why I bring it up. One last chart on enrollment, because you hear a lot of comments that are just ill-informed. If you look at the whole state, and this is Texas Education Agency data, this was put together by Good Reason Houston, but anybody can go online and look at it. You see since 2018, the percentage of students every district has lost, and Houston is 5th. That's not, you don't need to be proud of that. It's just that there are many other districts who have lost even more kids from 2018 to now. And we're followed closely by Ysleta, Pasadena, and Alief. Just 1 point difference. So lots of enrollment issues. The question is why, and it's not the intervention, it's a lot of other things. The intervention may contribute a little bit to it, but there's so many other variables, and any intelligent research report that HIRC is going to do would mention market forces, deportation policies, declining birth rates, and things like that, like the other districts. Then also we have aging facilities, and you know and I know that if our kids are doing remarkable things, and our teachers in schools, sometimes with holes in the walls. And I'm talking about some of these portables that you've seen. Benavides, go there. Port Houston, just go to some of these schools and you see just the sad state. And yet, they are doing a great job and trying to learn. But they deserve better. And so when the facility is low, and we use the FCI, just to remind you, Facility Condition Index. If it's over 65, that's not good. But we're not even talking about 65, we're now talking about 75, 80, 85. Under-enrolled schools drain resources. It's hard to be a principal of a school with 150 kids. They still have all the requirements. and the class sizes are so small you don't have the same synergy. And we subsidize those, and we have for the last several years. And then replacing or renovating, there's a fraction we talk about, the repair costs over the replacement costs. And as the repair cost grows, and that fraction grows, that tells you it's not worth throwing good money after bad. It's like buying a car. I mean, I've had kids with their cars and the transmission goes out, then the carburetor, then the wheels. I mean, you know, at some point you have to, the car is only worth $2,000. You know, the transmission is, I can't do that again. So schools are very similar in the fact that at some point you can't replace the plumbing, because that's, I mean, you could, but it's going to cost you more to do that than to build a new one, or the air conditioning unit and things like that. So we have these schools. I mean, during the bond we showed you a lot more pictures, but these are just some of the things. This is not stuff that comes up in just a couple of years. This is decades of lack of attention and preventive maintenance. Proposed school closures. Look, I have resisted bringing something to the board for 3 years. And the reason why is because I feel that schools should be community schools. That is the best thing for kids. And so when I was asked in the first summer, I know some of you weren't here, but you guys remember, I said, no, I'm not going to propose to the board closing schools. Not yet anyway, not that we wouldn't ever do it, because we wanted to give the kids a chance to have we didn't want achievement to be the issue. We didn't want our failure as a system to say, this is why your school is going to close. But I can't fight time and facilities and aging. And so what bothers me most now is that our schools that have the highest FCI, the poorest facilities, are our underserved populations. That is a fact. You're going to see it and where these schools are located. And that breaks my heart, because I think they should be community schools, but they've been losing enrollment for a long time and the facility isn't working. I can't justify keeping kids in a school with some of the pictures you've seen, or that has, you know, air conditioning unit that goes out all the time, can't be heated, or has, you know, just a smell in the teacher's lounge. I mean, just all kinds of things that's not right. So even though we have to close it, we're going to put the kids in a better school, better facility-wise, and as strong instructionally. That's what we're trying to do here. So even though we started this process, I don't know if you remember last spring, we talked to you about facility condition index and how we're going to whittle down and how we choose it. Let me go over a couple of those things here. So most of all, it's about keeping our kids safe and in schools that operate well. I mean, functionally. That's the deal. And if we can't do that, then we got to do something besides keeping them in the same place. While we choose, though, we want to minimize disruption. So local reassignment, improve our learning environments, meaning that the learning environment has to be a nicer building, meaning a lower FCI, newer building, safer building. Make sure that we attend to student needs. In other words, that, you know, if they have a program, the dual language, and they need to continue. If they're special needs students, they need to continue that. We can't put them in a place that doesn't serve them the same way. And then academic continuity, meaning if there's an NES school, we try to keep it NES. If it's PUA, we try to keep it PUA, etc. Yes, sir.
You mentioned FCI a couple of times. There were some of us who were not here last spring.
Oh, sorry.
But I was on the Community Advisory Committee for the bond, and so I was familiar with, I think, is it the same metric that we're talking about?
Yes, sir. So, and thank you for stopping me and allowing me to clarify. Facilities Condition Index is a report that's done by both our teams and confirmed by outside folks to say, what is the condition of your facility? They look at air conditioning, HVAC, plumbing, safety. For example, if all your doors open to the outside, that's a less safe building. And we have such old schools and that some of our schools are like that. If there's no perimeter fencing, if there's no vestibule. So all of these things add up to an FCI, Facility Condition Index. If there's structural issues, that's also included in there. So that is a Facility Condition Index. But that's not the only thing we look at. We look at these other things right here as well. We started back in, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Hold on, I want to kind of close the loop on the FCI. So in that context, the administration was identifying high FCI to identify needs, right? Where do we need to go invest? And now it's a little different, but it's really where are the needs the greatest, and at that point perhaps cost prohibitive. Is that
So
okay?
yes, and this chart. So yes, the FCI is one of the biggest things. It's not the only thing, but it's one of the biggest things under data analysis. Because we have so many schools with a high FCI, if we just use FCI, we'd close 40 schools, maybe even more. But you're right. It starts there as one of the key indicators of a school that is a candidate for it. But we also look at, enrollment. We look at capacity. If there's 1,500 capacity in a building has 1,500 student capacity, and it has 300 kids, we got to figure out how to make better use of that building. Doesn't mean moving the kids, it might mean moving another group of kids there. We look at feasibility check. So I'll just name it. And we said before, Port Houston, Pleasantville, that area, and Holland, there are 3 campuses. There is no nearby school that has a much stronger facility. So you're going to see we're going to pick the best of the 2 bad facilities, facility-wise. And then the holistic view is we look at the context, the academic capacity. So it's not an easy decision. It's not a matter of just plugging it into a formula and spitting out a school that we should close. And we started last spring and had discussions all the way up until now. We paused for a minute, but because of greater than expected enrollment decrease and because of some structural issues that came up and because of that ratio, that repair costs over renewal costs, building new, changed dramatically over 6 months, we're going to have to bring it to the board. So, bottom line, 12 schools are closing, but only 11 facilities. That means there were 2 schools and 1 campus. We're just going to combine them. 12 schools are closing. 7 of the 11 are actual close campuses. We're going to close 7 campuses. 4, those campuses will close, but they will be co-located. Co-located. So there'll be 2 schools in one facility. You follow me? That's our definition of co-location. 2 schools, 1 facility. And then we'll continue to offer unique programming if any of them had it. And then we're not closing 2 schools that would have been closed, but we're going to make those 2 campuses future 2 schools. K-8, future 2 schools. So we saved those 2 schools from closure. Here's the list that I'm going to provide for the board. You have it in your packet. We can provide way more detail. We also have the 26th. But Alcott to Madding. So Alcott is an elementary school going to Madding Elementary School. That's the ones on the right are the receiving school. So the ones on the left are the schools we're closing. Briscoe to Carrillo, Burris to Kennedy, Franklin to Gallegos, NQ Henderson to Bruce, Port Houston to Pleasantville. This is what I was talking about. Pleasantville isn't a great facility, but it's stronger facility-wise. It's better than Port Houston. And then Ross to Ross sits close to 2 schools. We're going to give the kids a choice because C. Martinez is one of those future 2 schools. So we're not closing C. Martinez, we're not closing Roosevelt, of course. Ross is what we're closing. They can have a choice to go to those 2 schools. And then these are the schools that we will co-locate. Cage to Lantrip, co-location. What that means is you still have the staff, you still have the principals, you still have the name of the school, Cage, and you have Lantrip also there. So Cage at the Lantrip facility, Lantrip is...
Why?
Lantrip has close to 1,500 or 1,400 seats, 1,450, I believe. Cage has 300 some kids. Lantrip has 400 kids, something like that. If I get the details are in your packet, the numbers of kids. So they have more than enough space. Lantrip's FCI is really, by the way, I can pull those charts up if you want, but they're in your appendix. Lantrip is a relatively new school, great building, great facilities, 2/3 of it not being used. This gives us a chance. I don't know if you've been to Cage. Cage has some structural issues now. They've always had, but it's getting worse and worse. And they've had HVAC problems and heating problems since I've been in it and before. So it's a chance to put kids into a nice facility. They're real close, less than a mile or somewhere around a mile. I don't have my chart in front of me, but less than a mile away, so this is an opportunity to do that. Fleming and McReynolds, both to Mickey Leland. Mickey Leland, similar, almost a brand new facility. A small men's boys' school. We're going to put them on one floor, which I think they've already done, and the other floor will be used by the middle school. So it'll be the middle school at Mickey Leland. Mickey Leland Middle School and Mickey Leland Young Men's Preparatory College Academy. Yes, ma'am.
But only single sex in the elementary, is that what you're thinking? Or it's going to grow?
No, the 612 is on one floor, be separate from the others.
Okay, that's what I mean. So one's going to be boys only and the other's going to be...
There's no elementary. Fleming and McReynolds will be a middle school, not boys only. The boys only will be on one floor. Now, eventually, the middle school might want to be, I mean, that's a decision down the road, and probably the elected board will deal with that decision. Hobby to Lawson. Hobby, we brought you structural issues at Hobby. It's not dangerous now, but it's not going to get better. So we will continue to make sure that Hobby is safe through the rest of this year, of course, but we're going to need to move those kids. But at Hobby, we are going to take the pre-K and kinder just to have a little bit more space at Lawson to the MLK early childhood center. And then finally, Gulfton has 60 kids. We're just going to absorb them into Liberty High School and give them the advantage of having the programs that Liberty High School has. They're in the same building right now, just separated. So we're just going to close that and make it much more efficient. There are many more schools we could talk about. Let me just finish up, then I'll take questions. These are the 2 that are going to be the future 2 pilots, so those kids don't go anywhere unless they want to transfer to somewhere, but we're not closing these 2 schools. So they'll be open, be called Greg, they'll be called Clemente Martinez, but there'll be a future 2 pilot schools. And finally, we know we got a lot of sense making to do. So over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, we'll be talking to the families at the impacted schools, the ones closing and the ones receiving, both. We started that tonight, by the way, with emails or messages through Parent Square. And then, we'll have many more opportunities for families to ask questions, tour their new school, make information available. We'll have a responsive support team at each school, so a couple people who are responsible for answering parent questions. We'll honor the schools that are closing, and we'll figure out a way to celebrate that at each campus with the principal and SDMC. And then each receiving school will have a kids welcome event. We'll probably have to bus them during the school day just so they can see the school and things like that. So that's what we're going to do with families. And for staff, that also started with information. We had a meeting with principals this morning, and then they had meetings with staff. We'll have another staff communications that also went out, but we'll have face-to-face meetings and FAQs with staff. And then same thing, responsive HR support team, priority placement, and priority preference. Just so you are aware, because the biggest thing on people's mind usually is, what about my job? And the answer is this. If we're still evaluating people like we always do, and if you're progressing 2 and above at a closing school, you'll still have a job as a teacher in this district next year. If you're progressing 1 and the principal wants to retain you, you will still have a job in this district next year. If you're unset, you don't have a job anyway. And if you're progressing 1 where the principal doesn't want you back, you also will not be here. That's the same rules we used before. So it has nothing to do with closing. We're not trying to get rid of teachers this way. In fact, minimize the number of closures. I mean, Austin, which is not even half our size, is closing 10 schools, and we're just closing 12. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, and it's never an easy conversation, but it sounds like the analysis has gone into it, and I appreciate the depth of thought. I would go back to that last slide because that's what I want to just applaud and double underline and encourage us to really lean into this information and support for the 149,000 parents who are not going to show up to these meetings and not be a part. What they care about are very practical things. And they're going to be thinking about at the dinner table very practical, logistical, very practical things. So I just really encourage our team to wrap our arms around these families and empathize with the fact that this is a very they love the school, they love the teachers, they love the friends, but it becomes a very practical thing. How do I get to work and still drop you off, right? That kind of stuff. So just lean in hard here and make sure we wrap our arms around those families.
Yeah, and I think that's well said, and that is our intent. I mean, kids, and yeah, we get it. You're a school of 150 kids, but there are 150 sets of parents, or almost that many sets, that are who like that school. The school has an A or a B, and it's like, okay, what's wrong with my school? The facility is safe, but it's not optimal. It's not optimal. And a couple of facilities are not going to be safe, 2 years from now. So we got to make a decision. But we will do what you said, sir, and we will focus on making sure those families get information and get as much care going to a new school.
Thank you for the presentation. 2 quick questions. One, are there any elementary schools and middle schools in the same feeder pattern on this list of closures?
Yes, and I don't have a map in front of me. Can anybody answer that specifically for me? Which, we have it, we can show you in the board session, closing session.
Okay. And my second.
But most of them are concentrated in one part of town. You're going to see that on the map.
And my second question is, I know we're not taking a vote this evening, but for parents who are already mentally making a decision, what is the district going to do from a school choice application standpoint for those who are maybe have already decided they want to do something else?
For these schools, we are extending the choice window till, oh, that's the next slide. So you can see where the
I know when we're out talking to families and on the listening tours that we do, the biggest thing is about communication. So that's going to be so important for us. And I'd rather our parents and teachers and to get so much more information than they ever wanted to see, as opposed to maybe missing an email or something went to their junk box, because that's what they're saying, right? Communicate with us, just give us more information than we ever had. So I appreciate that. And same thing about school choice. I was going to ask about how that would work.
You'll be happy to know that communications went out already? Okay, so maybe while I was speaking, we're at 7 o'clock.
To that end, besides the home school and that principal, if there is a direct path to someone in the district office, I know normally our answer is go to your principal, but this is way beyond that. So I hope there's a clear jump connection where there's a phone call or a person who is responsible for responding. And if that's not already in the loop, please let's put that in the loop. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll do both, because while some people want to go right to the district, most parents are going to go to the people they know at the school. So we'll do both.
Great, thank you. How's everybody doing?
That's it.
If anybody needs to take a break, go ahead, and we'll just keep going. Yeah, okay. Great. Well, we'll now hear from our remaining registered speakers, the first in person and then from Zoom. We'll call the in-person speakers to the microphone in groups, beginning with the speaker numbers 1 through 10. We have seats in the front row reserved for the next group of speakers, so please occupy those seats if you're up next. Please come to the microphone in your number order and then state your name. Before we do that, though, I want to welcome Congressman Christian Menefee, who is here. Thank you, and if you'd like to address the group, come on up.
All right, good evening. Congressman Christian Menefee, 18th Congressional District. A few of the schools that were mentioned as being part of the shutdown program are in the 18th Congressional District. I know that Trustee Mendoza mentioned that communication has been part of the main criticism throughout this process. I will tell you, I'm pretty engaged, and my first time hearing about this was about an hour ago. And I had to rush down here to try to figure out exactly what's going on. I heard a comment from Ms. Arnold that perhaps you all aren't voting on this tonight, and I don't know how the internal procedures work, but it doesn't seem like this has been very clearly communicated to folks in the community, and like they're getting an opportunity to meaningfully participate in the process. You all know that since the takeovers happened, many people feel like it's been a stripping of our democratic opportunity out here in the Houston area. And then you got another set of people who think that this is really just about closing down a bunch of schools so that we can turn this into just a charter system across the entire district. When you have something that's announced and it feels like it's in the dead heat of the night and it's not properly noticed and people aren't given an opportunity to engage, you just further that type of thinking. So my ask to y'all would be to slow down and allow people to come up here to have their voice heard and to make this process feel like it's more collaborative instead of it's already, you know, a done deal. And these kids and these families are going to have to just figure it out. So thank y'all, Christian Menifee. Happy to be here.
Okay, you can start the first group.
I'd like to invite speakers 31 to 40 to the front row, please. 31. Miss Nuncio, go ahead. Miss Nuncio, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Nuncio. I'm Mr. Miles. I'm sure you're tired of me being here at every board meeting, but I'm tired of being here also. Why do you continue to put our kids, teachers, and principals last? You just got a huge bonus that you do not deserve. Our kids, because our kids are not getting the education that they deserve. That money could have been used in our classrooms or for our teachers. As a 51-year volunteer, it hurts me so much to see what you are doing to our kids. Again, stop thinking about the almighty dollar and please start thinking about our kids' education and their future. Every night before I go to bed, I keep thinking to myself, there's got to be something that we can do as a community to stop this nonsense, Mr. Moss. I don't see
Thank
how
you.
sleep at night, and I'm going to pray for you.
Thank you.
Andre Taylor. I'm an advocate with Houston Parent and Action Network. I want to speak on the support on expanding college credit opportunities for students. It is one of the most strategic steps that I've seen in a long time. This issue is personal for me, but because I was a kid that was involved within the system by navigating through education. I was not behind academically, but I was behind within home issues, and it affected me within navigating through my education. Opportunities like this give equality to students who are navigating through education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Hi, my name is Taiwanikwa, and I'm an advocate with the Houston Parent Action Network. I want to speak about college readiness. First, I want to recognize the progress the district has made. More students are earning college credit while still in high school, and that matters. Early access to college coursework expands opportunity, builds confidence, and opens doors for the future. At the same time, students receiving special education services are still participating at significantly lower rates. As we celebrate the overall gains, we must also be clear about where gaps remain. Access to college credit should not depend on a student disability status. While the right encouragement, accommodations, and intentional outreach, students in special education can thrive in advanced coursework. We have seen that success. Our goal should not only be to increase participation overall, but to ensure that expanded access truly includes every student. Thank you.
Thank you.
Derek Montgomery, followed by Jackie Anderson.
Good evening. Jackie Anderson, President of the Houston Federation of Teachers. On January 21st, 2025, I mailed Mr. Miles referencing Trump's executive order to allow ICE arrests in schools and churches. He replied that staff had been trained. I could find no one to acknowledge this training, not even today. The Chronicle has recently announced that 4,000 immigrant students fear coming to school due to the threat of deportation. HISD has failed to share to parents a commitment for safety. This lack of compassion is leading to educational opportunities being lost, which is a civil right, and funding cuts and the devastating economical harm to the greater Houston community. Mr. Miles, do better.
Dr. Ruth Hoffman-Lack. The 25-26 budget book states that the Chief of Public Affairs is paid $200,000 plus bonuses to engage consistently with external stakeholders, including the board. One indicator of success is at least 6 board members cast votes that align with the administration goals and priorities 100% of the time. The expert on public school law that I consulted said this: an internal performance metric stating that a senior administrator's success is measured by ensuring that at least 6 board members vote in alignment with the administration's goals 100% of the time is highly unusual. That language goes beyond stakeholder engagement or informal sharing and veers into influencing government outcomes, which raises legitimate legal and ethical concerns. If you are still not sure why the entire city voted against the bond, now you know. No trust, no bond.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Julian Plateau. I'm a proud teacher at Energy Institute High School. Approving an 1882 partnership with Friends of Energy is essential to protecting the innovative programs that define our campus and ensuring teachers can continue to deliver high-quality learning that our students deserve. Energy thrives because teachers are trusted with curricular autonomy. We design interdisciplinary projects that merge TEKS-aligned science, engineering, social studies, and English into real-world challenges. And that level of innovation cannot happen without the freedom to create authentic learning experiences. But autonomy alone isn't enough. Our cohort-based master schedule provides a dedicated project planning time that builds rigorous PBL units, coordinates field experiences, and prepares students for exhibitions. This planning time is foundational to maintaining project quality. And our model depends on resources, prototyping materials, engineering equipment, technology, and logistics for frequent field experiences, because hands-on learning is the backbone of what we do, not an act. The 1882 partnership with Energy preserves the conditions, preserves our economies, and makes energy extraordinary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shouldn't be necessary.
That should be what all kids in HISD get.
Good evening, board members. As a parent, I want to first say thank you. I see the intentional strategies being put in place to help our students not just stay in school, but truly graduate prepared. Please continue strengthening these strategies and expanding access. As a parent, I don't just want to be notified. I want to be involved. Involve parents early, begin these conversations in middle school so families can plan intentionally and understand graduation requirements, college expectations, and industry opportunities. Workshops, step-by-step planning guides, and real-time progress updates can empower parents to support their child academically. Parents who are informed, included, and equipped become powerful partners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mi nombre es Maritza Lucio, soy madre de un estudiante de kinder en la escuela Jefferson Elementary, quien tiene una IP. Primero quiero expresar mi preocupación porque los apoyos que recibe son insuficientes para atender sus necesidades educativas. Quiero informarles que mi hija fue castigada por no terminar un trabajo académico, mientras estaba en proceso de evaluación. Como consecuencia, le quitaron 10 minutos de recreo sentándola aparte de sus compañeros. Mientras cumplía el castigo, fue picada por hormigas en gran parte de sus piernas y otras partes del cuerpo. Por favor, revisen el uso del código de disciplina y aseguren que mi hija tenga un entorno seguro y respetuoso. Mi hija tiene derechos que deben ser protegidos y respetados en todo momento. Estamos hablando de una niña de 5 años que fue expuesta a un riesgo físico.
Thank you.
Lucio, and I am the mother of a kindergarten student at Jefferson Elementary who has an IEP. First, I want to express my concerns that the supports that she receives are insufficient to meet her educational needs. I want to inform you that my daughter was punished for not completing an academic assignment while she was in process of evaluation. As a result, she lost 10 minutes of recess and was seated apart from her classmates. While serving this punishment, she was bitten by ants in a lot of parts of her legs and arms, and a lot of parts of her body. Please review the use of the discipline code and ensure that my daughter has a safe and respectful environment. My daughter has rights that must be protected and respected at all times. We are talking about a 5-year-old girl who was exposed to physical harm. Thank you.
Good evening. As you can tell, I've been waiting to be in. I'm a councilwoman, but I'm also a former teacher at HISD. I'm here to talk about the teachers, the veteran teachers that's been let go due to non-renewals. We got to make sure that what we're doing in the fairest of essence. We've having teachers being let go for no reason because of absences, even with proof, even with necessary documentation. You're letting us go. 2 years left, and then we get ready to retire, just like you guys get ready to do. Again, you let us go for no reason. That is not right. We're going to have to do things in order. And remember, karma is real. We got to watch how we do, watch how we treat people, and be careful. And remember, it's going to come a time that you're going to need us teachers. Please, these teachers that, especially that teachers you letting go, don't do that. Bring them back. Let us know as veteran, vibrant teachers that we matter. Yes, certifications matter. Yes, my master's degree matter. You said, hey, you got good uncertified teachers. I disagree.